final part of the attachment section for Year 1 psychology. So think about your friends and family, closest friends. What did they teach you or show you about relationships? So think about whether they taught you that a relationship should be happy, whether a relationship is about arguments. What have they actually taught you? And it won't be direct teaching. Just think about indirectly what you've kind of learned about a relationship. So think about whether it's a romantic relationship or whether it's being a friend, what you've actually learned from it. And then what we're going to focus on today, and what the objectives for today are, to explore the influence of those early attachments on childhood relationships and then on adult relationships, and in particular romantic relationships. So it's going to be split into two really, where you have to focus, because it's named on the spec, childhood and then adult. If you have a look at the bottom bullet point in bold, so we need to be able to answer a question on childhood alone and adulthood alone. So I just want to say that for adulthood, we're going to be focusing on romantic. And it does say, including the role of an internal working model. And if you go back to bullet point 4, you'll see obviously that we've got the internal working model, which Bowlby says is developed very early. So that's what we're going to start with. So this is Bowlby's view that the first relationship that we have, usually with our mother or our primary caregiver, creates an internal working model. And this is a mental template or representation which we carry with us into all other attachments. And that is a template that, if you like, according to Bowlby, is innate and you cannot change. You can't do anything about that. And that's obviously something that we're going to explore as a limitation of this explanation. So the idea being that these are going to affect and influence our future relationships. So if that template and that bond has been quite strong, then that's going to have a positive impact on later relationships. So on a basic level, that's what we're looking at. So just to reiterate, Bowlby says that having a first relationship with a primary attachment figure forms this template, and that acts as a template for future relationships. So therefore, the quality of that first template is really, really crucial and very important. So if there's a bad experience with the first attachment, this will have an effect on later relationships. So if we just think about some of the things that we've looked at, particularly looking at the previous lesson on the Romanian orphans, those children haven't formed a template, and a lot of them haven't formed it early enough, and therefore that is going to have an effect on later relationships. So what the effects might be that they might struggle to form relationships in the first place, or they may not behave appropriately when they have them. And we're going to explore some of that throughout this session and through the next session, just to think about what some of those effects might be. So I showed you this flowchart in one of the previous lessons, but I'm not going to talk you through it. If you just have a look at it, you can see therefore that the primary carer's behaviour does lead to that internal working model and has an impact, and you can see the different ways in which it has an impact there. So we're going to start by looking at later childhood. And if you've got the Green Herd Girl book, that's where I'm taking the research from. There are lots of other pieces of research looking at childhood. This is the one that I look at, and it's focusing on bullying. So you only really have to look at one element. So what we're going to do is basically look at what are the effects of an internal working model on bullying in childhood. So first of all, children who have a secure pattern of attachment in early childhood, so their internal working model is quite secure, they are unlikely to be involved in bullying. So that's the first thing that you need to know. And they will form reasonably effective friendships. They will have quite normal, if we can say what that is, relationships with people, and bullying probably won't be on the scene. This is quite bizarre because I thought this would be the other way round, but insecure avoidant children, so the ones who've had parents who aren't really giving them a lot of quality time, tend to become victims of bullying. And that could possibly be because they haven't got the attention, so they end up on the outskirts all the time, and they don't properly know how to fit in because they're kind of not used to it. So the research, if you have a look in the Green Haired Girls book, the next thing says that insecure avoidant children are more likely to become victims of bullying. And just remember what those attachment patterns are like. So what they're actually going to be like early on. So these are parents who essentially don't provide sensitive care and essentially leave the children a lot on their own. Insecure resistant children are more likely to become bullies. And insecure resistant are ones who get the mixed messages. So they're the ones who the mums or the caregivers are very attentive at times and then can get quite aggressive at times, and they're kind of very, very inconsistent. So they're more likely to become bullies. So that's the first bit. And if you have a look at the research in the Green Haired Girl book, it will actually show you, and you need to make some notes on that. So we're going to now turn to work and have a look at the work of Shaver. And Shaver said that how we behave in romantic relationships is a result of 3 systems. And although you don't need to know these, I thought it was just worth mentioning. That one being the attachment system, and that's the one that we are going to focus on. The caregiving system also, and the sexuality system. We're not going to look at the sexuality system because that's not really what we need to look at in terms of attachment. But what we're going to start looking at now are the effects of that early attachment figure beyond childhood into the first romantic relationship. And you need to have a look, and I've taken this directly from the textbook. We're going to look at the work of Hazen and Shaver. And I'd like you to read this research because this is the key piece of research that you're going to need to know for this. And it's called the Love Quiz. And what we would do if we were in class now would actually be to carry out the Love Quiz. And I would like you to read this and identify, if possible, what they found about the different attachment styles and what this suggested about the later relationships. So they conducted this classic study, and they actually used a kind of self-report printed in an American local newspaper, and it's a quiz. So what I need you to do now is go and have a look and research on the internet, on Google, whatever, Hazen and Shaver Love Quiz. See if you can get a copy of it. I will direct you to a copy and another video. I'd like you to have a look at that quiz. I'd like you to think about what the 3 sections are in that and what the 3 sections might be about and why you think it's important that that quiz would have 3 sections. So it says, first of all, they assess respondents' current or most important relationship. So these are questions that are asking about that current romantic relationship. The second is asking about general experiences in romantic relationships. And the third is asking to choose statements that best describe feelings. So I would like you to go and look at that, and then I will continue on another session with the rest of this.